This video is for everyone and anyone interested in biblical history. Number one, to all the Christians and Hebrew roots, if you are not familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls, I am about to tell you something amazing about the entire story of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So here we go, we're going right into the story. In case you didn't know, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found multiple times before 1948. Now, the first one is the one I want to talk about because this one is one of the most important ones. So somewhere around 900 AD, we have the Timothy 1, or the first, letter 47, that was written, and in it, it talks about a discovery in the caves where a bunch of Jews found certain scriptures. Now, the ones talked about were New Testament scriptures. And so this guy, Timothy, was talking about how he has multiple scribes for the Septuagint and the Hebrew. And when he heard of this discovery, not only is he writing it down in this letter, but he asked the person that he heard it from, he said, okay, so if you found New Testament scriptures, tell me if you find this in there. Because it is believed that the scriptures they found were in Hebrew or Aramaic as well, and not just Greek. And he was using the Greek for the New Testament. In doing that, though, he asked certain questions. Oh, does it say, curses anyone that hangs on the wood? Does it say what eye has not seen and ear has not heard? Does it use Psalm 51 where it says, sprinkle upon me the hyssop from the blood of your cross? As this is not found in the Septuagint or the Hebrew text. And so he wanted to know, just like we do today in the Hebrew New Testament, we want to know what certain words were, or certain verses that, the Greek has as an interpolation or something else, if it's actually founded in the Hebrew. So it's amazing that this happened in 900 AD. And so basically they found a lot of New Testament manuscripts and others, because they found 200 Psalms of David as well and many others. This is what sparked a huge messianic movement for the New Testament in the 900s. This is incredible because this is the first record we have that that the Qumran caves were discovered. This is actually the first time, but it's not the only time. And so the next time they were discovered is when the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs was revealed in the mid 14 to 1500s. And when those were discovered, those also came from a cave in the Judean desert that were written in Hebrew and then translated into Greek, Aramaic, and Latin, to which they are fully preserved today. And even the Assyrian Orthodox Church keeps these as part of the canon because that's where they came from. So now, when we fast forward to 1948 and there's only 3 testaments in there instead of the 12, well, we know why the other 9 are missing, or at least that the 3 they left behind might have been duplicates because the others were taken. But that, again, 1948 is too late. It was discovered again in the 1880s, where the Moses scroll was discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Moses scroll was made famous by Moses Shapira, who was a Jew that was a Christian. And I'm not going to share everything about his story, but basically the entire text of his Moses scroll was a first-hand account of the book of Deuteronomy without third-person insertions. And so everywhere in Deuteronomy where it says I, or the Moses spoke, or the Lord spoke to me, or the Lord said unto me, and not the Lord said unto Moses, everything that's first person is recorded properly in the Moses scroll. And the 10 Commandments are in there as well. They're different. The 10 that we know are actually 9. And the 10th commandment in the Moses scroll is don't hate your brother in your heart. And several other things about the traveling path they took when they were conquering each city throughout the book of Numbers is actually in proper order in the Moses scroll than it is in the book of Deuteronomy. So apart from that, though, the Moses scroll was written entirely in 1st century Paleo-Hebrew. It was transcribed into modern Hebrew to then be able to read the translation, and so that was in the 1880s. And Ross K. Nichols covers this very well and extensively in all his videos and his book, The Moses Scroll. Now, finally, we come to 1948 when they were as a whole discovered. And there are Old Testament manuscripts and calendrical manuscripts and Psalms and many other things that are in there. But it was only a small amount left. Now, one of the interesting things is that there were Old Testament manuscripts found in the first time it was discovered in the 900s, as Timothy mentions that in his letter 47, that there were Old Testament manuscripts discovered. So the caves have been scavenged multiple times. And again, Cave 7 is never really talked about, but Cave 7 is the one that had Mark chapter 6, verse 52 to 54. And it was in Greek, but it's the Gospel of Mark at Qumran. How awesome is that? But see, the Cave 7 collapsed, quote unquote. They blew it up and damaged it because it had New Testament manuscripts, but it wasn't, that's never presented in any of the Dead Sea Scroll books at all, because they don't want us to know that the New Testament, the apostles in them, were in fact a big part of Qumran. So I talk about this in multiple other calendar videos, but Yeshua was clearly amongst the Zadok priests at Qumran. Aside from everybody always making fun of the Dead Sea Scrolls and calling them, crazy separatists, no, they were not. And the library there is small and fragmented and everything because they have already been scavenged multiple times in history. Now, the interesting one is the Damascus document, because what we learn is that there was actually 2 full copies at Qumran. However, the one that we have from 1948 is missing certain passages. So they actually have the full one because, again, back then they found it and they preserved it in the synagogue in Hebrew. And so they take the one from the synagogue and it matches perfectly from the one in Qumran from 1948 because there were 2 copies of that full book. And so when we read the Dead Sea Scrolls from the books, they use the copy from the synagogue as well. And so people don't tend to think like, well, how did the synagogue get that? Because they found the caves before. This is a remarkable discovery. And I just wanted to put it together that, the Dead Sea Scrolls influenced the New Testament and vice versa, that the New Testament had a lot to do with the Qumran community. The Qumran community is legit. The solar calendar is legit. The story is legit. The priesthood is legit. Everything is. And it's just a remarkable story that they were found multiple times. And that's why that which was found in 1948 is not very much left. Even the Book of Enoch was fully preserved, but the research team of the Dead Sea Scrolls does not have it. It's been auctioned away by those who don't want this to see the light. The full Book of Enoch, as well as 2 other books that are unnamed. There is a first-hand account witness to this, and this guy died in the early 1990s. And since then, it's just kind of been like almost a conspiracy as to why the Dead Sea Scrolls is looked down upon, but also how not everything is found there because aside from everything being already checked 2 or 3 times in history before 1948, that even what was left today has been only what they want us to see is what they left us. I hope you enjoyed that, but this is true, and so you can look it up yourselves. The Timothy 1, letter 47, and the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs is also when it was discovered again. And then in 1886 or 7 is when the Moses Scroll was discovered. And then we have 1948 when the rest of them were discovered and brought to the world.
He who hath ears to hear, listen carefully as we speak virtue, reaching the world through the efforts of the priests, repairers of the breach, restorers of the paths, rebuilding the tents of David. Our home is found at last at the tabernacle of congregation, where we baptize and anoint our nation, performing oblations, upon the brazen altar, walking in the ways of the appointed Savior with poise, escaping the noise from Satan and his poisonous nature. Without fail he accuses the brethren, using his weapons of collusion, and then sin comes upon us. And we deserve it, to be honest. We were cursed, cause we honored and were worshipping the gods of this world, and was living lawless at first to the written law, without purpose and little knowledge, serving our wicked conscience. Thus, righteous judgment was handed down from the courts of the Most High. A sobering moment, but let's be holy and pure while we endure and ensure life comes forth. Let us hold tight, secure in our roles as we strive, adorned with our robes white and clean. It might seem like the loneliest road, but we stride in hope as the Most High reveals his ideals. And so we exercise patience as well as love, dwelling safe in the seventh covenant, graciously set the sustenance. Let us exemplify faith through hell and suffering, praying to quell the punishment, waiting on heaven's government to be established, as it was in the Garden of Eden, when Abba had breathed life into creation, and our forefather received the living word. No more are we called prisoners, we live and learn, and study to be approved as the sons of Yahweh, who were lovingly given rules to better build and preserve truth. The bricks surrounding the kingdom are the 7 pillars of virtue. This is a house of wisdom. Shalom.